we'll have, if the two pastors will take a seat, we'll get rolling here. All right. There's multiple places we're going to be in the Bible tonight, so I'm not going to ask you necessarily to turn anywhere specific. I would suggest you take notes of where we go so that you can double check all these things. But obviously we are in part number 5 of this current series of Corey Coffee and Conspiracy. This one we're dealing with technology. This is the 5th part of it. We're obviously striking a chord online. Last month, we're at 43,000 minutes of view in 1 month. So when I do stuff like this, the fringe stuff, and bring it back to Bible, I get massive amounts of views. But if I just go, well, let's do Song of Solomon and break it down verse by verse, we get about 17,000 minutes of views. So it's more than double, well over double when we go a little bit more fringy. Part of that is because most pastors won't deal with anything edgy. They won't deal with anything other than, hey, let's just keep it in between the lines, drive safe, get everybody there. That ain't me. So that's the low T view watchers. So I am more on the edge of trying to pull out. This is an amazing book, and this book here to me is designed to be more than just a Sunday morning, let's get where you live kind of book. We need that. But at the same time, this same book is deeper than any one of us can even begin to fathom, because it is the mind of God in paper. So before we get there, I want to remind everybody of Wedstrong that's coming up December 5th through the 7th. This is in Nashville. It's $375 per couple. So if you in the class haven't signed up, we had 12 rooms left Sunday.
It was 20-something.
20-something. All right. So hopefully we can fill those up. So if you are going, get signed up. If you are online and you want to go and be a part of that, go to kellyharbin.org. You can sign up. I'll be teaching. Justin will be teaching. Joe McKaig, Troy Stogsdale, and obviously Sherry will be teaching there. The ladies' breakout sessions. So, man, I would encourage everybody to go be a part of it. It is my favorite conference to be a part of because we don't shove you in a classroom all day long and then have you come back at night and shove you in a church service all night long. You actually have some good stuff in the morning, and then we get you out to go hang out with your spouse. And so I encourage you to be a part of that. This is obviously our outline that we are going by. We're dealing with technologies, past and future at this current state. And the title of this sub-series of Corey Coffee and Conspiracy is The Bible and Ancient Technology, or The Bible and Technology. And so we've covered a lot of stuff. And last week we got into ancient monoliths and megaliths like Stonehenge. And one of the things that we did is we talked about, we covered a lot of stuff. Machu Picchu, we covered Pumapunka, we dealt with the pyramids, we covered Coral Castle in Florida, and we talked about frequencies and how did they move these massive structures that even to this day we do not have the ability to do. And we got into moving things through frequency, through audible sound, and we talked a little bit about that. And we got to the Tibetan monks, and we were talking about how they had lifted rock over 300 meters in the air. It took them about 3 minutes to do it, and they did it through the sounds of trumpets and drums and men's choirs. And you go, oh, that's crazy talk, until you start to realize, well, that's how the walls of Jericho fell. So is there a connection that God chose to go, okay, here's what we're going to do? I mean, think about it. It's the dumbest plan ever. Hey, you know that fortress up there with all those people that want to kill you? Yeah, that one. Here's what I want you to do. You want us to run and attack it? No. I want you to circle it for 7 days. And on the 7th day, I want you to blow this trumpet and everybody shout. And then all of a sudden the walls just dropped. Well, is there a connection to frequency on that? And then, this is something I didn't get to last week. My wife sent me an Instagram reel on this, and so I put it back in today's for tonight. But this is called the rock at Horeb. And everybody that goes over there says this is the rock that actually Moses struck twice. He struck it the first time when God told him to do. Then he struck it again out of anger, and God says, that's it. Now, bottom line is this rock supposedly split, cleaved, and water gushed out of it. And that rock fed over 2 million people and their cattle. Okay, now, that's a massive rock. But here's the key. I want you to look at this if you study it. Now notice, the first time this rock shows up is in Exodus 17:1. It says, and all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of sin. Now I'm not doing a play on the word. I want you to know where they're at. And they're in a place called Rephidim. Okay, that's where they pitched at. And this is, I'm setting the context in verse 1. Verses 5 and 6, it says, and the Lord said unto Moses, go before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take it in thy hand, go, behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come out water out of it. Now, that's chapter 17 of Exodus. Now, watch this. You get over to Numbers chapter 20, verse 1, years later, by the way, notice they're in the desert of Zin. Not Sin, Zin. And they're in a place called Kadesh, or Kadesh Barnea. They're no longer in Rephidim. Right? Now you say, why is that a big deal? Because I'm setting the context to show you that the two stories are in two different geographical locations and years apart. In other words, the water had given rock, or the rock had given its water, and at some point the water stopped flowing. And this time, God says, I want you to go speak to the rock. Moses, out of anger, strikes the rock. The rock gives water anyway, but that's what happens over in Numbers chapter 20. Now, by the way, if you really want to know what the verses are talking about, why is the first time the rock was allowed to be struck? Because it's a picture of Calvary. And Calvary comes into your life, and you get rejuvenated, or you get born again through the act of how he was struck on the cross for you. But through your life, when the blessings stop, you don't have to go and get saved again. You just have to speak to the rock the second time. It's a clear picture of typology of eternal security. Once you've met the rock that was struck, you don't have to go back to where he was struck again. All you got to do the second time is speak to him. All right? Now, but I want you to notice something. Kadesh is right here. Wilderness of Zin, right here. Okay? Down on this peninsula here is the wilderness of Sin. Okay, and this is where Rephidim is, from here to here. Now, did you see that rock? Now, I'm not saying that that's the rock, but we would have to agree that a rock is pumping out enough water to fill 2 million people and their cattle. It's got to be a pretty large rock, right? So, got to ask you, how'd that rock get from here to here? Right? Now, watch this. Isaiah says it this way. And they that thirst not, when he led them through the desert, he caused the water to flow out of the rock for them. He clave the rock, in other words, split it in half, and the water gushed out of it. So he's leading them through the desert, but do you know what's following them? That rock. Now watch, Paul says it here. He says, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock, look at the word, that followed them. Now, and he says, and that rock was Christ, not a type of Christ. He says it was Christ. All right, now do what you will with that, but watch this. Let's go back to this. So let's just say for an instance, just for argument's sake, that's the actual rock. For 40 years, that rock went where they went. Now, who do you think's in charge of picking that thing up and moving it? How'd they move it? They moved it the same way the Egyptians moved their boulders, the same way the South Americans moved theirs, the same way those at Baalbek in Lebanon moved theirs. It's through frequency. These guys were able to understand the science behind it, and that rock floated around with them. Now, you say, I don't know if I believe that. Well, then you come up with an answer on how they're moving that thing around for 40 years. That'd get a little old. Hey, we're moving out. Great. Who's got rock duty? Right? Now, so that was a question. But let's get into tonight where we're going to talk about frequency and sound and the Bible. Okay? This is kind of where we've been working towards. Now, we talked about frequency, able to move rocks like those Tibetan monks lifting it. And we even showed videos where they're doing it today, where they're doing audible through sonic sound, levitating things even to this day. If you didn't see that, go to last week's video. But I want you to understand that everything is a frequency. Everything on this planet deals with frequency, including your human body, which is resonating around 80 to 100 hertz. That's the frequency of a healthy human being. Okay? And you said, where did all this frequency come from, and what does it got to do with the Bible? Well, let's start in Genesis 1:1, where it said, "In God, and the earth was without form or void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water." Now, do you understand? Every movement produces frequency, produces waves. So I'm up here gyrating around while I preach. When I'm doing that, it is producing frequency. When God moved upon the water, frequency would have happened. The earth resonates at a certain frequency. And we're going to get into this as we go, not necessarily tonight. I want to show you some cool stuff. But notice, God moved. That's a frequency upon the face of the water. And God said. The greatest frequencies that you and I as humans understand is audible sound, which is nothing more than a frequency being produced. So when God spoke everything into existence, he spoke it into existence with frequency. Okay? And what did he speak into existence first? And God said, "Let there be light." Do you know what light is? Right now I got these blinding lights shining at me. You guys got lights over you. You're seeing this stuff on the screen. It's all light, which is frequency hitting your eyeball. And then God is so designed for your eyeball to take those frequencies and convert them into images so that you can see them inside of your brain. That's how we perceive the world we're in. The two major senses we have to perceive the world is light and sound. That's how we motivate, or that's how we move about in our daily life, okay? And that goes all the way back to here. Nikola Tesla, who is the smartest guy that's been in our lifetime for sure, but he's definitely, they asked Einstein, what was it like to be the smartest guy on the earth? And he said, I don't know, you'll have to ask Nikola Tesla. And the dude is on another planet. Like if you get into wanting to study, most people think Tesla is a car, right? It's named after him. This dude he was into Wi-Fi and free energy long before anybody else. And when everybody thinks Edison came up with all that stuff, Edison's a fraud. He's just a guy with money who bought out and had Tesla working for him. Now, he says this, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, you got to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, or a harmony, if you will, when you understand that. Now, if you go back to the Nazis and Joseph Goebbels, you'll understand that during the Nazi movement back in 1930s, they had come up with the idea that so all of music was tuned to the hertz of 432, okay? And they came up with the idea of, no, let's move that to 440 hertz. And there's a purpose behind it because all of us are affected by frequency. All right? One of the things that my wife and I have chosen to do is we do not sleep with our phones in our room anymore. So I have people that call me and they're like, hey, I'm sorry, but you weren't awake. No, my phone was in the kitchen and we weren't in it, all right? And so what we've done is we realize we're in a world of frequencies and all kinds of EMFs that are being produced constantly, and we're trying to limit that, like Wi-Fi and all those kinds of things, because of what it's doing to the human body, okay? Now, they started this in the 30s, producing this, because what they found out was 432 was in tune or in harmony with the human body. And if they bumped it up to 440, it created chaos. And then they added this to the music in which people are listening to. That's one of the reasons why when you go back to the Mozart and those guys, that music had a healing effect, and the music we have today has no healing effect. Matter of fact, it's doing the exact opposite of what music was designed to do. And for those of you that are going, oh, this seems to be a little new age here. You know, you're into new age mysticism. First of all, I could care less what the new agers do. There's a lot of truth in which they've tapped into that God so designed. But here's the thing you got to understand, that God designed all humans to be musical. Name me one person in here that doesn't like any music. Now, I'm not asking your style. You know, people like rap music. Some people like country. Some people like bluegrass. Yeah, oh God. Like I'd rather hear the frequency of a dog howl, right? Which is about the same thing. But either way, so they were the ones that did this, the Nazis. Now, I know you get to hear the word Nazi all the time nowadays, but these are coming from morons who don't understand history. Now, understand what they were doing. Now, who won the war, the Allies or the Nazis? You're nervous about answering because you don't know, right? I thought we won it. I thought the Allies won. How many of you guys have ever heard of Operation Paperclip? By the way, don't believe in anything I tell you. You got to Google. Go look it up. Operation Paperclip, as soon as we overtook Germany, Russia and America jumped in to start taking the top-notch Nazi scientists, not just scientists, but upper leadership, and they started bringing them into the United States and into Russia. And what went down is you ended up moving. The Nazis didn't lose. They just moved to where you live. And when you understand what the CIA is and how it was developed by Alan Dulles and those guys, understand the influence of the SS that was involved. And most of what we're dealing with as a nation to this day is from Operation Paperclip. Okay, now, so the guys that invented that 440 thing came here. Okay, now, this is Werner von Braun. He was the head of NASA, or the inventor of NASA, if you will. And he's the famous rocket scientist. Then you have Arthur Rudolph, who was working over there with the V2 rocket in Germany. We brought him over here. Now, you understand what these guys were guilty of, right? Atrocities that you and I, and you say, well, these rocket science guys weren't. They may have not been involved in turning on the gas in the gas chamber, but they were with the same group and the same team, and we brought them over here. And so that 440 thing got instituted here. And here's what happened in 1936. The American Standards Association recommended that the A above middle C would be tuned to 440 hertz. This standard was taken up by the International Organization for Standardization in 1955, once they got over here. Now, this is an image, and we're going to get into this as weeks to come, but this is an image of frequency in water. And this is one of the quickest ways to actually see frequency, is to put it in water with light. And this is 432 hertz. And this is going to give out this shape that we'll get into in weeks to come on what's called sacred geometry. And you'll notice that it's very defined. There is very much organization under this frequency. Just 8 hertz above that is 440, and look at the chaos that goes on in it. Look at the lack of order that's in it. Now look at society. Do you find a lot of order? Most of the society we live in is in chaos. It's controlled chaos, but it's still chaos. Okay? Now, the 432 hertz is said to be mathematically consistent with the patterns of the universe. It is said that 432 hertz vibrates with the universal golden mean pi and unifies the properties of light, time, space, and matter, gravity and magnetism with biology, the DNA code, and consciousness. When our atoms and our DNA start to resonate in harmony with the spiraling a pattern of nature, our sense of consciousness to nature is said to be magnified. The number 432 is also reflected in the ratio of the sun, the earth, the moon, as well as the process of the equinoxes, the great pyramids of Egypt, and Stonehenge. They all understood 432 hertz. Now, and it says, it brings your conscious back into harmony with nature. Now watch this. This is not New Ageism. You ever just go sit out in the woods by yourself? And how peaceful it is? Every year I go skiing. I've done this for 20 plus years. And every year I take a moment to ski off the trail, off into the deep woods. I take my skis off and I sit down. And because of that snow, it's so insulated out there, there is absolutely, you can barely hear anything. And I just sit there, and it is the most peaceful, calming sensation I ever experience. Yet most of us spend most of our life with chaos going on. Think about it. The average young person cannot stand silence. They cannot stand meditation. Now, when I say meditation, don't go, oh man, he's a guru from the Middle East. No. The Bible speaks of meditation. And specifically meditating on the things of the Lord. But the problem is, Satan has figured out how to keep the noise going in, and we can no longer hear from God. And God's saying, listen, you got to calm it down. And it's not just your ears. Understand the 432, and when you're out of tune with your music and all the chaos, understand it's resonating not only in through your organs, it's resonating all the way down into your DNA. Which means when you are putting stuff into you that's out of frequency or out of order, you as a body are no longer in tune with the environment that God so designed for you to be in. Now, I know that's a lot. They're going, whoa, good night. Well, just hang with me now, all right? This is your Coachella. All right. It's the part of the inner ear that converts acoustic impulses into electrical signals, and it has a seashell spiral shape. So the sound goes in here, and this converts those frequencies, so that you can hear it. You know what the problem is now? This is us. All day long. Headphones are in. How often do you see people just walking around? Headphones in. All day long, you're hitting them ears with that and converting it in. Now, watch this. Ephesians says it this way. He says, speaking to yourself in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing and making, look at the word, melody in your heart to the Lord. Okay? Now, the word melody, that same word can be thought of not only in the form of a psalm, but melody means in harmony or in tune. Okay? Now notice he's saying speak to yourselves. In other words, he's implying you're alone. This is part of your meditation upon the Lord. Now watch. He says, in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks always for all things unto God and the Father in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now this thing is about, hey, music matters. If you don't think it matters to God, then why out of the 66 books God gave you, the biggest one is a Psalms book? And it's called Psalms because it was designed for palming. You clapped with it, which is interesting because independent Baptists told me it was wrong to clap. And the whole book is dedicated for clapping. Right? Now, why is that important? Because the clapping creates a resonance or a vibration or a frequency in which we sing along to. When that palming or clapping is out of harmony with the words you're saying, it no longer makes sense. I was going to do this, but I ran out of time. If you take a movie and you add the music to the scene, you know, guys make millions of dollars who are really good at going, hey, I did the soundtrack for that movie because it matters, okay? And so what goes down is you have this situation where if you take music that's designed for like a love scene and add it to a scene of suspense, it doesn't make any sense, right? It just ruins the whole scene. Okay, that's what's going on when things are in melody or harmony. Watch this. You get over to James 3:5, he says, even so the tongue is a little member. The word member that God used there in Greek is where we get our English word melody. It's melos. And what he's saying is in this whole chapter, the context is when the tongue isn't in melody with the rest of the body, it's chaotic. It's no longer in melody. It's no longer in harmony. Right? Now, Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brother, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are good, report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Because your mind matters. Okay? And the frequencies around us affect our mind. If you don't think so, let somebody be down and out and listen to a good song. What does it do for you? Lifts you up, right? I go work out in the morning. She and I get up at right about 3:10, and we are literally on a treadmill at 3:30. So that's about 20 minutes from popping your eyes open, getting ready, being on a treadmill. I'm sorry, I'm not listening to Beethoven on that treadmill. And then when I leave there and I go lift weights, I've got to listen to something that gives me a little juice. You know what I'm saying? Because music affects. It does. I mean, for all you lovebirds that are all just gooey and loving-dovey, and you go down the road and you listen to some awesome song that makes you think of, you know, your little boyfriend who you think's so awesome. How well does that resonate inside of you? And I'm using those words on purpose because it affects how you feel. It affects how you go about things. Now, hang on. All right? This is a church bell, right? You ever thought about church bells? We don't have them here. They used to be on churches everywhere. Wonder what's up with bells. They're in all kinds of society. I mean, Christmas bells, you know, you got the priest walked into the Holy of Holies. You know how they knew he was alive? The bells were resonating, okay? Bells are evolved in all parts of this world, religious and non-religious. But you ever notice they've done away with them? Check this out. Let's see if we can make something work for you.
Take a look at this old bell that they just digged up, y'all. This right here is in South Carolina. This bell weighs almost 560 pounds alone. Of course, they had to use one of the Tonka toys in order to dig it out of the earth because no man can lift that on its own. But you guys do know what bells were used for, right? You guys do know why we don't see them anymore, right? Why we don't hear them anymore. Remember we used to hear them all the time? Just take a look at all these bells over here. This was in the early 1900s. They gathered almost 170,000 bells all together and they destroyed them. Like over here. When bells are rung, they emit a powerful frequency and vibration that dispel negative energies, which in case promotes healing, health, wealth, abundant. Not to mention, they ward off negative entities, parasites within you and around you. This is why big bells and certain bells were housed in churches, because churches was actually a place that you can go to heal thyself. Do you guys remember Spider-Man and Venom? Look at the scene over here when Spider-Man tries to release the venom, the symbiote, the parasite. Y'all see how he rung the bell? And as soon as he rung the bell, the parasite, the symbiote, which is venom, because it's in his veins, venom, started coming off. And then started finding its way down to Eddie, which is the die. Ed died, Eddie Barak, which is death. See that? And it's the X. X marks the spot. That's where you would stand in order to heal yourself. They show you everything in these movies. Look at that. I hope you take a look at.
All right, now let me teach you a little bit about bells, and then I want to challenge you a little bit, Bible believer. Now watch this. You ever heard "to whom the bell tolls"? Okay, it was because when somebody died, the parishioner, the church would ring the bell. Well, why were they ringing the bell? Because they had this belief system that these demonic forces would mess with the dead person. And so the way to get the demonic beings to go away is you'd ring the bell. Okay? Now, what is the bell emitting? Sound, which is a frequency. Now, notice what he said about parasites. Okay? Now, this is frequency in the body to get rid of parasites. Now, hang with me. Tolling bells for the dead is an ancient custom. Some experts believe that this custom originates in the attempt to drive away evil spirits that haunted the deceased body, waiting for the opportune moment to seize the liberated soul from the body. During antiquity, bells were only rung when important people died, but with the advent of Christianity, it became a custom to ring bells during funerals for any parishioner. In the Middle Ages, church bells were rung during the epidemics, hoping to purify the air of disease germs. It was widely believed that these bells had special magical or spiritual powers, primarily due to the proximity to the church. Suspended between heaven and earth, bells seemed to be guarded the passage between material and non-material world, frightening away demons. Okay? So now, I haven't told you my opinion yet. I'm just telling you, they're saying, man, they noticed that near the churches was almost a haven for health, because wherever that bell was ringing seemed to be that people didn't get sick in those areas. And then outside of that bell ringing, that's where the parasites and different diseases set in. And so people thought, oh, well, it must be magical powers. And it's down at the church, so let's go down there. Okay? Now, I haven't said a word yet. Now, watch this. They thought there was a connection between bells in the spiritual and material world. In other words, you understand that inside of this room is a physical world, that you and I are in a three-dimensional room, in a three-dimensional world. But also inside this room is another dimension or multiple dimensions where there is spiritual entities inside of here. Some on our side, some not on our side. And what they believed is there was a connection between this residency or this frequency of these bells to get these evil spirits to go away. You buy into that? Now, I notice it's quiet because that's generally how you need to be in this class. Because I generally go another direction. Watch this. The sacred bell of Buddhists served this spiritual expression, similarly warding off negative entities and encouraging good spirits to manifest. So the Buddhists tapped into this. And by the way, for those of you who think that I may be promoting yoga or Buddhism or whatever, I'm not. But you understand false religions are right some of the time. Catholics believe in a Trinity. You know, the Muslims believe that Jesus is coming back. Are they right? Of course they're right on that part, but that doesn't mean we promote or agree with Muslims or Catholics or whatever. Now watch. On the west coast of Africa, a bell was used to be tied to the leg of a sick child to ward off the evil, while the food was placed away from the child to attract the evil spirit there. In India, for example, bells symbolize the ear and what the ear perceives. For instance, the ear can perceive the sound that reflects the primordial vibration. No, it's not primordial, but yes, it's primordial. There we go. All right. Now, thus, most of the sound perceived during yoga experiences are bell sounds. Hold that thought, you yoga workers. Now, watch this. In the Islamic world, the sound of bells expresses the subtle sound of the Quranic revelation, the revelation of divine power in experience. Similarly, the Buddhist canon seems to assimilate divine voices with the sound of golden bells. In China, bells symbolize in association with thunder, and is often linked to the sound of drums. You ever notice how many bells are in Chinese songs or sounds of their music? It's everywhere, right? Now, how many of you guys have ever heard of what's called a sound bath with yoga? This goes on literally right here in Atlanta. You can go to a yoga deal, and what they'll do is they'll either get you and a group of people, or you can do it by yourself, and they get you in a room. They'll have you humming mantras, and they work through bowls, vibrating the bowl much like a bell, and that resonancy sound coming through, and they call it a sound bath to wash away the evilness. Now, watch. 1 Samuel. By the way, so how many so far believe that bells can ward off evil spirits? What does the Bible say? All right, let's check this out. Saul, the Spirit of God left Saul, right? And when the Spirit of God left Saul, because he wasn't a New Testament Christian, he wasn't guaranteed what we're guaranteed, but when that Spirit left, what attached to Saul? An evil spirit. So his dude comes along, and Saul's servant comes along and says, "Behold now, an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Let our Lord now command thy servant, which are before thee, to seek out a man who is," look at the word, "cunning player of" what? A harp. Now, what's a harp? It's a stringed instrument that resonates a certain frequency. Just as a side note, I'm studying a doctor right now that uses a harp for healing for his patients, when all of this science that we have has finally given up and said we can't do nothing. He's playing this music and miracles are happening. Right? Now, this isn't Benny Hinn miracles. This is scientific. Now watch this. "Which are before thee to seek out a man who is a cunning player of the harp, and it shall come to pass when the evil spirit from God is upon thee, that he will play with his hand, and thou shalt be well." Goes on in verse but the Spirit of the... Okay, we got that. Verse 23. "And it came to pass when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took a harp." Now, it's interesting. The guy playing the music to heal Saul is the writer of what? The Psalms. And the music that's in the Psalms, do you think maybe he had some insight? Now watch this. "And David took the harp and he played with his hands. So Saul was," look at the word, "refreshed and was well. And look at this. The evil spirit departed from him." Maybe why they've gotten rid of all the bells. You say, how do you explain that? I can't, other than to explain to you something's up with the frequency that these musicians are producing to drive away evil spirits. Now you go, "Oh, that just sounds new age. That sounds like you're into some voodoo." Really? Because Sunday morning you're going to file into this building And what's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to sing and play music and melody to the Lord, which is done in harmony and frequency. And how quick does your mood change? You know, you wake up, snotty-nosed brats ain't ready. You're trying to get them ready to go. They got, you know, hair going all different directions. They got their pajamas on. They're eating their whatever, and they're not ready to go, and you're mad. You're trying to get them there, and you finally get them down to the church, and you are so out of it by that time. You and your husband been arguing on the ride home. Listen, me and ride home, we've done it when I was the senior pastor, we pulled into the parking lot. Walking in the door. Oh yeah, well, you know what? And then walk in. Hey, how's everybody doing? Doing good. Walk up, preach. She's singing in the choir. And then we get back in the car and it's, let me tell you something. All right? A little bit facetious. The point is, the reason we do that singing isn't just to entertain. There's a reason why we're doing it. And we're asking God to remove entities so that we have free course to open up that book and get a straight shot at people's hearts so that they can hear the Word of God. Right? Now, here's a cathedral. I want to, never mind the black and white checkerboard floor. Don't worry about that. We'll get to that at another time. Now, let's look at this. Notice look at the organs up here. But notice the guy would stand way down over here, and way back here people would be sitting. Now let's just be honest, that's not really a good architectural layout of a building to get people in if you're wanting to really produce this. If that building in cathedrals in Europe were designed, and me and her have been in them, like we were in the old church in Amsterdam so many times. I was so fascinated with this building. Everybody's like, hey, did you see this? No, we were studying that old church. They literally buried their people in the floor. They didn't have a grave outside. I mean, their dead is in the floor. Ours is in the pew. All right, now check this out now. This church isn't really designed like we know church, right? Ceilings are way jacked up, but it is very narrow and very long. Now, look at this one. This is St. Paul's Cathedral. This is, once again, you'll notice the organs right up here. Notice that the chairs with lights are not facing the pulpit area. They're facing each other. Like you would be sitting this way, turn to look at that guy way down there and see what he's got to say. Right? Now, here's another one. Don't mind that checkered floor. All right? Now imagine the dude way down there and you're sitting in this chair right here. You honestly think that building was designed for preaching? We design our buildings for teaching and preaching the Word of God. That's why we have them. We have no other reason to have this building. It's to equip saints. That's why we have it, and we want to equip you and then send you out to go do the work of the Lord. And so therefore we try to get you as close to us as we possibly can, because we want to make it intimate when we expand upon this Word of God. Now, look at this thing. Now, let's just try this guy out and see if he's got something to say.
Churches and cathedrals were never built for religion and places of worship, and I'm going to show you exactly what these were built for. Now, churches and cathedrals display cymatic patterns in their windows, and cymatics are patterns made by frequency and sound. These windows display high vibrational healing frequencies, and some chapels even have songs encoded into their architecture. Now, this is what cathedrals look like on the inside. Clearly, this is not set up and designed for people to all be sitting and listening to someone all the way at the front. They were designed for people to lay down and listen to the healing frequencies from the instruments in these cathedrals. Now, our ancestors knew exactly how powerful frequencies are, and the oracle chamber is a perfect example of this. This is an underground chamber in Malta that pitches sound at 111 hertz, and 111 hertz frequency has been proven to kill cancer cells. Now, these cathedrals were also designed to generate their own free energy and convert it into electricity. This is why the word cathode is in cathedral. A cathode is a type of electrode through which electrons move. Now, this information has been intentionally hidden from us from our predecessors. However, we are in a time of awakening. The public consciousness is shifting, and this information is coming to light. And this will definitely be a part of our free new world. Peace and love.
Now, obviously,
Churches and
I don't agree with everything he said as far as our new world is going to be peace and love. No, the new world coming, the new world order that's coming, is nothing but chaos, death, and destruction. That's the last 7 years of this place. But he is on to something, because those people would be in there, and the sound that was being emitted in there was designed to put frequency inside your body. Now, what's at the top of those buildings? Bells. You're sitting inside there, and the shape of that thing is very tall, very slender. It was not designed to go, what's he got to say about the book of Psalms today? What's he preaching on? Oh, he's going through the book of John. What was that verse? Do you have PowerPoint? Where's your handout? They don't have any of that. So here's what you see right here, and we're going to be getting into this as things go on. But notice these are stained glass in cathedrals right here. This is actually frequency done in water. These are done inside a mosque, all right? But all this stuff is tied in together, and when we get into sacred geometry, you'll understand more of this. But man, this whole deal is tied in together, and it's designed through frequency. Now, watch. Here's the stained glasses, right? This is what they look like. Now, some people say, well, the purpose of stained glass is because back in the Middle Ages, most peasants couldn't read, and so they would tell the Bible stories in stained glass. Okay, well, that's cool that you think that, but that's not what they were intended for. They were stained glass for a reason. How often do you see stained glass now? Don't see it, right? Okay, now watch this. This is a mosque. So this here is a cathedral. This is a mosque. Notice that they kind of on the same deal. This is another cathedral. Notice the blues. If you look back, you see yellows, greens, reds, blues. Now, what most stained glass was made out of was ruby, cobalt, copper, lead, and uranium. That's what they'd make the stained glasses out of. Now, what's interesting is if you go back and study, just in the last 100 years, people used to drink out of ruby cups, cobalt cups. They still to this day try to drink out of copper. They drink out of lead glasses and uranium glasses. And what it did was emit a frequency from those stones into the water you were drinking, which had a healing process. I'm going to get into water memory here in a few weeks, and you're going to be your hair is going to come off. You're going to have no idea where your wig went, right? Now, but I want you to understand that, like the copper thing. If you think that copper thing's so far-fetched, how many of you guys know Brett Favre and that whole, put the copper, anybody wearing those things? Copper socks, copper whatever, and the frequency, some people wear copper rings around their wrist. Copper is a great conductive of electricity, but also frequencies. I mean, you go and you look inside of most electrical components, and it's copper, right? And our water systems used to run through copper. Now we run them through plastic. What is PEX? Yeah. So I mean, here we are putting petroleum products into the water directly. And think about this. Your water doesn't just sit out there at the street. It's sitting there in your house, absorbing all that stuff. And then comes in and let me chug it down. How many of us, most of us drink out of bottled water, right? Because of the convenience, right? Now, inside of this, now notice here. Here is a picture of a stained glass with the UV sun rays coming through. I bet you've been taught to stay out of the sun. Now, when, I don't know how far I can go here. He ain't quite in office yet, and Fauci's still there. So a few years ago, this issue came about in our country where we were all getting this sickness, and they said, you need to stay indoors. The greatest healer we have is the sun and the light that comes from the sun into your body. And that's one of the reasons why you see people in offices stay more sick than guys like me that stay out in the sun all the time. And it's just, so here's what's happening. Inside of these cathedrals, at certain times of day, that sunlight would have went through the cobalt, uranium, ruby, copper, and lead. Remember, everybody said lead is bad for you? I'm not suggesting go out and start chewing on some lead. But when they're going to do an x-ray on you, what do they cover you with? To stop the radiation. Right? Now, bottom line is, so as you would be laying down here, all that UV light is going through the cobalt, the uranium, and all that stuff is entering into you to bring natural healing to your life. And guys, I'm not pumping holistic. That's, do whatever you want. Pop all the pills you want. Take all the pharmaceuticals you want. I could care less. But you have to agree that God designed the body to heal the body. We have an immune system, and it's designed to heal us. And what we're doing is destroying it. And God gave natural ways for this stuff to go down. Okay? Now, how they let this pipe organs. You ever notice them? You ever walked into these cathedrals? When me and her go to New York, we just pop into churches. Hey, the Baptists are here. And I'm enamored by them. Like, they're big, massive places, and they have pipe organs that are just unbelievably huge. Now, that seems to be a lot for a choir. Or do you think maybe these organs and all the money that they dump into that has something to do more about the sound frequency, like those bells? That as you come and you sit down in that building and you're hearing the pipe organs and the sound is shaped in such a way inside that building, and now all that UV light is coming in through that stained glass. Wonder what that's doing to the human body. Now what we do is we emit cell phone signals, Wi-Fi signals, radio signals, microwave signals. That's what we're sitting in now. All right? Now, I'm about to close out. Watch this. Vibrational frequency in clothing. All right. So you go over here to Deuteronomy 22:11. Now, Deuteronomy 22:5 is the famous one everybody knows. You women put on a dress. After all, that's what it says. It doesn't say anything about it. It says women are not to wear that which is pertaining to a man, and a man is not to put on a woman's garment. Okay? It doesn't say anything about pants or dresses. It's clearly saying you are to look like a man, and ladies, you are to look like a lady. Right? You figure out what that means in your home, and we're good. Now, however, he goes on down. He's got all these rules. Verse 8, hey, when you build a house, make sure there's a battlement, a knee wall on the roof. That's interesting. The same dude's yelling at me about her wearing pants don't have a battlement on their house. Sinner. Right? But here's where it gets really interesting. We get here at verse 11, and he says, thou shalt not wear a garment of divers sort. Now, the comma's there for a reason. Now it's interesting, the same dudes in the pulpit yelling about women in dresses. You ever wore a 50-50 shirt? Now, if I'm to make her live by verse 5, why aren't you living by verse 11? All right? But there's more to learn here than just dealing with them and their goofiness. Watch. Thou shalt not wear a garment of divers sorts, as wool and linen together. So he says, listen, you can't have a shirt, you can't have clothing that is wool and linen together. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. That's a stupid rule. Really, God? That's what you're mad at me about? I had a wool and a linen. I had a wool coat on a linen shirt. You're mad about that? Or do you think there's something to it? You think maybe God knew in Deuteronomy 22:11 more than what you and I know scientifically today? Now watch this. This Nobel laureate, Dr. Otto Warburg, observed that frequency readings of a healthy adult typically run between 70 and 90, some up to 100. So the hertz that we're talking about. So if you're in here and you're a healthy adult, you're anywhere from 70 to 100 hertz. Okay? He also found that individuals with frequencies below 50 often suffer from chronic disease, while those with life-threatening ailments like cancer have readings below 15. Now let's let that sink in. Healthy adult, 70 to 100 is what you're resonating at. You're vibrating at. You're putting off that frequency. If you have sick and you have chronic disease, you're below 50. But man, guys with cancer are around 15. Now, file that away for just 1 second. So linen and wool and cashmere, especially those with red dots. Nobody got it but me. CJ? No, it's Seinfeld. What's the matter with you guys? All right. No, it's the red dot. Cashmere. All right, anyway. Linen and wool and cashmere have a high frequency of 5,000. Now check that out. You're resonating about 100. 5,000 for linen and wool. But do you know if you put both of them on, they cancel each other out and it becomes 0? Now, who knew that in Deuteronomy 22:11? God did. And that's why he said, don't do it. He wasn't a God in heaven making up a bunch of rules to make it strict on you. He was a God who understood science and said, don't mix the two. Now, follow me. Hemp, some of you are getting excited already, measures unavailable, but it is renowned for its high vibrational properties through it is significantly lower than linen fabrics. Organic, unbleached cotton is about 100, about where you're at. However, bleached or colored cotton drops down to 40. Now remember, you're resonating at 100, 70 to 100, and you just put something on your body that's resonating down to 40. Watch this. Leather, around 30. Silk and bamboo is at 15. Now remind me what cancer is? 15. Watch. This is where it gets really good. All plastics, polyester, acrylic, spandex, ladies, lycra, viscose, and rayon. So what is all those yoga pants made out of? Where are they resonating? 0 to 5. That's below the resonating of a cancer patient. Now, do you think maybe there's a correlation By the way, if you're buying them at Lululemon, you are out of your mind. Not only are you overpaying for those things, but they are connected to all kinds of chemical issues. However, do you think there's a connection in the fact that we are using dry fit everything? And listen, guys, I'm not telling you to get your yoga pants, your leggings, whatever you call them. Wear whatever you want to. This class is not about forcing you or legalizing stuff. We're not legalists. I don't care what you do. Just be modest. But you think there's a correlation with all the dry fit and spandex and all the stuff we're putting on our body? And God says, hey man, that wasn't supposed to be. Now check this out. I'm closing here. Now, linen. Remember what linen is? 5,000. We went out and bought linen sheets, and that's what we sleep on. Now watch this. Back in the day when you went to the hospital, you didn't have a DuPont plastic rubberized sheet. Wonder how much healing that's doing. They put you in linen. When a baby was born, what'd they go in? They wrapped them in linen. 5,000 hertz, high frequency. Then you know what they did? I want you to notice this is outdoor windows. Notice this is outside here. They rolled you in your bed with your linen out to get into the sun. Now you go into a hospital now, what is it? It's just LED, fluorescent,
plastic,
little bitty light, window. Like you literally you cannot tell the difference between a public school, a prison, and a hospital. Right? I'm closing right here. I'll let this lady speak for me. She's probably nicer.
Really? Why the Bible said don't wear wool and linen together. The study that became popular was, they did a study looking at frequency, I think it was looking at millihertz, and they looked at the frequency of fabric and how that affects the human when we wear them. And they found that a human body that is dying carries a frequency around 15 hertz. A living human's around somewhere between 700. And they looked at the frequency of fabrics and they found that linen and wool, 5,000. Organic cotton, 100. Polyester, rayon, silk, 15 millihertz.
So you want a high frequency.
You want a high frequency. So the idea is that polyester, rayon, which is a natural fiber made into a fabric, it's not plastic, rayon, it's organic cotton, and cotton come at a different frequency. Of note, don't go putting linen and wool together. Linen and wool go at opposite frequencies, and so they're both at 5,000, but if you put them together, they cancel each other out.
Really?
Why the Bible says don't wear wool and linen together.
All right, well, either way. So here's the point I was trying to bring before I got knocked off the rails. God knew in Deuteronomy what the frequencies of those two fabrics were, and he knew how it would interact and how it would interact with your body. And so therefore, make sure you take that into account when God gives us those rules, whether it be eating rules, whether it be other type of rules in the Old Testament. It's stuff that, amen, maybe he knew a little bit more than we did. So, all right, I'm over time. I probably should have stopped 10 minutes ago. So.